Okay, so I think Pav, we've talked about this earlier, kind of in some of our like other phone calls, but it's more like BTC Pay really started as a plugin, right? It started as like a very simple instance, but now it's become just a broader e-commerce platform. So kind of what was the evolution between plugin to e-commerce platform, and what kind of businesses have you seen come onto the BTC Pay ecosystem as you guys have made that transition? Is there anything that surprised you guys? And where else do you think that BTC Pay should be adopted more? Like what other opportunities do you see?
Yeah, so as you said, it started as very simple platform which allowed people basically to connect to their WooCommerce store in WordPress. And from there, Nicholas just added a few more plugins and developed it. But then people like requested, they were using different platforms and different e-commerce platforms, so they needed different integrations. So we try to have like this out of the box integrations, which if you have like installed BTCPay server instance and an online store, then we just have these plugins that connect them both. You install a plugin, basically add a little bit of authorization, and then it's basically connected. So for now, we have like support for WooCommerce or WordPress. We have for Magento, for PrestaShop. We have some custom integrations, and I'm not sure if I'm missing anything. But in the next release, I think that which they announced it on Twitter, we will finally have a Shopify integration, which is a little bit of a workaround, but we finally managed to get it to work. And it was like, it is the oldest issue that we have on our GitHub. So I'm very happy that soon we will be closing like that Shopify integration, allowing people who already have Shopify stores to basically just connect and, accept Bitcoin via BTCPay server.
Wow, that's incredible. I haven't checked Twitter this morning, so I must have missed that. But really, Shopify is pretty like that's a big deal, guys.
Yeah, it's a centralized platform. They have their own like rules that you have obey, and it's a decentralized software. We were not able to like BTCPay server talk to Shopify because they take fees. Probably they need some sort of regulations. But I want to give shout out to OpenNode, guys. It's also a payment processor which is centralized. They actually gave us this idea on how to integrate it, and there was this guy DJ Seeds, I think is his name, who like started this simple script, and then our rockstar dev took over and completely like integrated everything. So we're still in the test phase, but it's good because when you already have existing merchant base on a platform and you make a plugin or integration, that really can increase the number of users that use BTCPay server, because at that point they only need BTCPay server and a plugin in order to use it.
Yeah, I think what's actually really striking to me about the Shopify opportunity is I actually just recently, so obviously Shopify is this pretty like huge, well not huge, but they have like a very like beginning to end service for their merchants, right? From my understanding, they also kind of manage their supply chain and kind of help you guys. Basically, they like modularize each single aspect of kind of the supply chain and from beginning to end. But a lot of really big brands are on Shopify. I think like an SF, kind of like an SF darling, like Allbirds, kind of that like shoe company is on Shopify, which I didn't know until very recently, actually. So yeah, that's pretty big.
I think Shopify is really big in the US at least.
Yeah.
The thing is with Shopify, the way it's been done is that it's not an official partnership or integration. It's kind of like a workaround that was figured out on how to make it work without having to do because you have to be a registered company, you have to apply for a partnership with them to actually get this working. So it's actually a nice smart workaround using just some scripts here and there to bridge the connectivity between the two. So yeah, props to them for making it work without dealing with the bureaucracy around it.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know as well, I mean, some Spotify people, I think some staff from Spotify came on our chat at one point, right, Pav? Or do you remember?
From Shopify, yeah. They actually, they had like a dev meeting and worked on on integrating BTCPay server, because some of them was like one of the devs was like a fan of BTCPay server, but they were unable to figure it out how to do it in that short 3 hours or 4 hours workshop that they had, and our API was not helpful at that point. So yeah.
I mean, so as you guys look at kind of the Shopify integration or kind of support, is there a problem that it's a workaround? Like, can it just stay a workaround for the foreseeable future, or do you think it's going to be something that you need to revisit later?
I think we can just make it a bit better than it is right now and make sure it's more seamless. But it would stay a workaround because based on their terms and conditions, it's not possible to have an official bridge between us. We're not an official centralized company that handles payments for others, so we can't really forward money to them or any of that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yes, but they allow like custom checkouts and stuff like that. So basically they allow that kind of stuff if you know how to make it work. So I don't think it will be a problem at all, because there are actually stores that have been using this for a few months, but we just, now made that integration a little bit more seamless, and that so that it works on BTCPay server sides, updates your orders and stuff like that. Although I think that there are probably a few more things that Rockstar wants to do around it.
There's some more stuff to trigger payment states across BTCPay and Shopify and stuff like that. So, but we can work towards it. It's a good start. So
yeah, for sure.
It's one of the most requested features anyway. So we're very happy that we finally made a step of integration. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, right? It's very much it's representative of, how there's always the conversation around like what's going to make crypto mainstream, like how do you actually do it, how do you preserve Bitcoin's kind of independence while making it mainstream, right? And I think having a workaround that's sustainable, I think, is a good way to do that. And then, as always, crypto will find a way, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, that's very cool. And then, obviously, with the Shopify integration, you've penetrated a new kind of opportunity that your user base and your community has been asking for. Where else do you see BTCPay kind of going to next, where it isn't right now?
Well, I mean, there's also another segment of users which a whole e-commerce solution just for their store. So we also have these built-in options inside BTCPay that lets you kind of set up a small miniature store or a crowdfunding Kickstarter kind of thing within the system itself, within BTCPay itself, so that you don't need to set up a Shopify store or a whole WordPress installation if you have just a small thing going. I want to see that kind of expand a little bit better so that we can handle some more advanced checkout experiences, so you can ask for shipping details and stuff like that. But that's one way I want to see it grow. We can also probably look into building more apps. I think Pav really wants to see that happen. It just depends on what kind of apps we want to build and how big we need to make them, because the current apps are quite massive as they are at this point. Like our point of sale app you can have it as a way to accept either do a donation website or just have items to choose from. There's very basic inventory management. You can have a cart and all that stuff in there. So they're quite advanced as they are. Crowdfunding is this whole crazy entire system as well that's completely embedded inside BTCPay. So we can definitely build some nice big apps within BTCPay itself, just because the ecosystem and the technology behind it is so good.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I really want to push more apps in BTCPay server because they allow like immediate use case for people, like deploy BTCPay server and you can get your entire crowdfunding campaign right away in less than 3 minutes if you want. And imagine if we're now working, I've been wireframing with Britt Kelly, a shop, very simple shop. Of course, if you need like a complex e-commerce solution, you will use WooCommerce, Shopify. But if you're just a regular Bitcoiner who wants to sell a book or something, why not just do it within BTCPay server's simple app that you bring your entire shop on the web so you can make a few bucks, stack some sats. So yeah, those use cases are very good. And I just feel like we forked this interview into a dev meeting right away because yeah, those are the stuff that I really wanted to discuss on Friday when we have, or Thursday, I'm not sure, when we have a dev meeting. So good to see that we are aligned with those goals.
Well, I'm glad you guys got the chance to chat.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, honestly, like I think I think whenever I speak to like the BTCPay developers and like you guys, it's just so clear how much you guys live and breathe BTCPay. It's like even I'm sure like even throughout our conversation, it's just like points of like, okay, like, you know, this is maybe a new focus area, or like we really like this can be improved. Like I can just like kind of sense it as a bit of an outsider on how much you guys are always thinking about improving your product, improving the experience. So yeah, it's honestly, it feels really great to like just be a part of it. And I really appreciate that you guys feel like you guys can chat about this stuff. So it's good.
Yeah, thanks for allowing us to chat a little bit about it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I did want to get into your most recent release. And I think one of the big parts of that release was the Bitcoin only altcoin builds. And so I definitely want to give you guys space to talk about it, kind of how you guys came to that decision to support altcoins, how you guys came to the decision to split it up, you know, what's going to happen after that. Are you guys, you know, thinking about merging or just keeping them separate forever? Go for it.
Yeah, so I can give a little bit, if you don't mind, Kukks,
yeah, go.
like general why altcoins in BTCPay server, and then you can maybe technically explain what it means for users. Yeah, so altcoins were always allowed in BTCPay server and as a sort of integration inside BTCPay server. We allowed altcoins communities to like add altcoins and maintain them inside BTCPay server. But people who wanted to use Bitcoin only, they just, you know, need to enable Bitcoin only mode, so to say, or they just explicitly need to say enable Bitcoin in order for me to use it. So we allowed their communities to maintain the code and support the users. We have altcoins chat because in a way it allowed us to improve product. That means more users, more people, developers actually fixed a few important bugs in BTCPay server. We got a lot of feedback from their users, but as time passed, we noticed that majority of our users actually uses Bitcoin only. And we saw a decrease in altcoin questions. And we also noticed that sometimes altcoins were making deployment broken for some people, like the nodes did not want to sync and stuff like that. So we never wanted to just forbade something for people to use. We had this meeting and we discussed it and realized that, you know, cryptocurrencies are about freedom and BTCPay server is about freedom, and us being gatekeepers and not allowing somebody to use something would be like foolish. So for us, Kukks will go into technically what it means for developers and what kind of risks it is for users. But for us, it allows us to separate people who want to use Bitcoin only, so that altcoin code base is not, you know, so that altcoin code is not like basically leaked into Bitcoin code base. So yeah, basically we allowed separate people and allow those who really want to use Bitcoin to use it. Those who use altcoins, there will be a separate BTCPay server built for altcoins. And I think it was a good decision. We will see, but people were happy about, you know, having that altcoins remained and that people who only want to use Bitcoin have that option. So we will see in the long run how that worked out.
Yeah, so in terms of code-wise, it's actually not too different. In the past, we've had altcoin support for a long time. We've had it for years as well. Mostly around forks of Bitcoin, so they use the same protocol and whatnot. They just have a different ticker symbol or whatever. So they integrated quite easily because the code base is flexible enough to allow just, you know, changing those kind of things. So you tell it to grab a rate for a different crypto code and you're good to go, kind of. And some more advanced stuff, obviously, like deploying the node and stuff like that, which is always maintained by their own community. We don't really touch that stuff at all. So if it broke, we would just disable it unless somebody fixes it like for the next release. And I think it's okay. I mean, I don't think it was too bad. It wasn't intrusive at all. We don't kind of make people just switch over to using a specific kind of coin. They always configure what they want to use all the time. Even if they didn't want to use Bitcoin, they can just do that. I think I forgot who it was. I think one of the coins actually did a whole fork of BTCPay, and they did it branded for their own style and stuff. So BTCPay is open source software and that you can use for your own needs, right? So no harm done there. Just do whatever you want, really. But anyway, there were some introductions to BTCPay of separate payment, different coins which use completely different protocols and stuff, which require more code, obviously, more potentially, I wouldn't say dangerous, it's just more intrusive code. So it obviously made more sense when we started introducing the altcoin and Bitcoin builds completely separate, so that if you're running only Bitcoin, you don't have to have this code included in the final result. So the code still exists in one main code base. It's just when we create the release, we remove all that code completely, so it doesn't pollute your release, if you want to call it that. Let's see, what else is there? I mean, and I think it should be straightforward. If you have used coins before with BTCPay, which isn't Bitcoin, and you've had payments come in, then you should stick with the altcoin build. If you only really care about Bitcoin, I've never accepted any altcoin payments in your store, or any of your users have at least, you're good to go. Just use the Bitcoin build and you won't notice any difference with your operation. Maybe it'll be a little faster. Technically, it shouldn't be faster, but you'll just be sure that you won't have any code that interferes, and you'll be safe, let's say that. In terms of risks, I don't think there's a big issue.
Yeah, it is important that this was not a political decision for us. For us, it was a technical decision. So we wanted our contributors who focus on Bitcoin to be able to focus on that, and those who prefer altcoins and users who prefer altcoins can run a build and focus on that. As our core team, we are really focused on Bitcoin only, and Bitcoin itself is hard to keep up with all the improvements, all the technology evolving every day, basically. So for us, this means better focus and more stability. Whereas it's not a political decision. We did not forbade anybody anything. Those who want can still use the altcoin build and enjoy whatever coin they want.
Yeah. What if I'm asset agnostic, right? And so, I'm not necessarily bought into Bitcoin, but I like it. I'm not necessarily just altcoins only, whatever. How would I kind of accept both? Is that an option? Is that something that would be easy for me to do?
It's exactly so. Before, to set up BTCPay to accept Bitcoin, you would say that you want to basically, in the setup script or the installer, you just say BTC. If you wanted to accept another coin or multiple other coins, you just tell it accept BTC and this and this. And that's about it. There's no complicated setup for that stuff. So it's all automated there. If you tell it to only accept Bitcoin, then it will be set up to use the Bitcoin only build. So it's all automatic. So even between updates, if you were using Bitcoin and something else, and then you update it to the latest version, you were only using Bitcoin, it will switch to that. Otherwise, it will stick to the altcoin build. So it shouldn't break any installs and it shouldn't do any harm.
Gotcha. So really for you guys, it's very much like a technical improvement that would enhance the user experience.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha. And then just because I have to ask, because I think it's always interesting kind of what altcoins people are looking for. Were there any altcoins that were called out by your community members that they were like, oh, we really want to make sure that we want to use this asset. We want to make sure that it's easy or set up to do that.
Yeah, people request them from time to time, but usually we tell them, yeah, go back to your community of altcoins and ask them to implement it, and then they will come back with a pull request of adding that altcoin. So that's usually how it worked in the past. We'll see how it goes now. for now, I don't think we don't see many requests for altcoins on GitHub, at least, to be honest. But there are people like doing pull requests to add their coin, and if it works, we just add it, and that's about it. People who want to use it will use it. Those who don't want to use it now won't even have that in the code base. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly. It's non-intrusive at this point when we have the Bitcoin and altcoin build. We just make sure that it won't interfere, even on altcoin builds, that it won't interfere with any of the Bitcoin stuff, and then it won't cause any, actual harm or malicious intent kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, people add coins mostly from their communities, and the community will maintain the coin that they run. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, I like how you guys are kind of bringing all the different communities together. I think it's really important. Okay, so moving backwards, right? So this was the most recent release. It was maybe like a week and a half ago at this point.
Yeah,
it seems
something like that. At this point, you're better at knowing when we release than we are.
Like constantly tracking like what you guys are up to. So maybe this was the most recent release. The one right before this, I think you guys had a pretty big focus on user experience, but in the sense of how merchants would use it, right? Like if I'm a merchant and I want to manage my like cash inflow or like kind of manage all of the nitty gritty that comes with, selling and receiving payment. I think you guys really focused on that aspect, that use case. So talk to me a bit about kind of the pull payments, the refunds, the notifications, and like the invoicing, right?
Sure. Kukks, you want to tackle the pull payments and refunds?
Yeah, so I think one way to describe pull payments is kind of a withdrawal system. So it's kind of the opposite of accepting payments. It's kind of giving payments to somebody else. So the easiest way to explain it would be you generate a link, you share it with somebody, and now they can take money. They can withdraw Bitcoin off your wallet. So one good use case for this is obviously refunds. That's been super important. People have been wanting it since day one, basically. So now you can issue a refund, which is basically a link with a public page that the customer can go to, put in their Bitcoin address, and withdraw the money that they had sent back to their own wallet. That's one way to do it. There's some other use cases would be maybe a withdrawal system. So if you have a website with where you people deposit Bitcoin to, and they have a balance there, you can create a withdrawal button, and they can generate the pull payment with a way to withdraw money to their own account again. I think it opens up quite a few different experiences in that regard. It's still a bit early, I think. We do want to improve and polish it up a bit. I have some ideas. I've been working on them for a few days now. But I think that's a good explanation about that one. What else is there? Maybe notifications, was that it? Or?
Yeah, notifications are basically just like any platform has notifications. Our users wanted to know a bit better when certain invoice is paid or when something important happens on their BTCPay server. So for that reason, we added user notifications, which are just basically a pop-up saying you received a payment, or hey, your invoice was partially paid. Contact your customer for the, either a refund or tell them to pay the rest and stuff like that. We do plan to add quite a lot of features into notifications because we see them as something good that's quite useful and that will allow us, even when there is a new BTCPay server update available, we now will, if you configure your server that way, you can get a notification when the new update is available. So it's just a very simple thing, but it's very useful for actual people who spend a lot of time in their BTCPay server looking through invoices and stuff like that. So we do prefer to expand on notifications a little bit more later. We have a bunch of ideas.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. And so again, this is definitely, you've mentioned this before, but something that your user community has requested. It's something that again, it's a feature that you guys implemented because of feedback you've gotten from your community. Have you guys received any feedback after it? Are there kind of either like pros or cons in terms of like how you guys have implemented the notifications or refunds, and like invoicing in general?
Yeah, so somebody already managed to crash notification page. They had like 700 notifications and they discovered the bug. So we need to fix that. I won't go into technical details, but whoever wants can look up on GitHub what it is. And yeah, for pool payments, we are aware that we really need to do way better user experience and also fix a little bit UI there. So we're still a little bit in the brainstorming process of trial and error, how users feel, what pool payments are for them, how they perceive it, where in navigation would they find it easier to access and stuff like that. So for now, it's a little bit hidden in the BTCPay server interface, but we plan to like make it a little bit easier as we improve that feature, because I think it's still early for the pool payments.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll look forward to it. I think, obviously I'm very excited about kind of all of the improvement or the releases you guys have. But I think not this one, but the one right before it was just really kind of eye-opening to me because it was so like user focused, right? And it was very kind of, I think it was geared towards things or like features that I think people would think are almost like superficial, right? Like notifications or stuff like that. But I think what it actually shows is that you guys are really building an e-commerce platform, and all of these things are really important as someone who manages a store, right?
Yeah, we don't add features for the sake of adding features, I'd say, though sometimes we maybe do that, but like we try to listen to feedback, listen to users, how they interact with our software, and then like build features for their use cases. So yeah, that kind of feedback is always important, and we tend to be quite specific. And yeah, as you said, those are maybe some simple things that any software dev would say, is this even a feature? But the amount of improvements that brought to our users was really interesting, and we saw actually users using it and reporting some stuff and bugs around it. So people use it and find it useful, and for us, that's important.
Nice, very cool. Okay, so then I think one thing that we do want to talk about, which is again moving backwards, right? This was the most recent release with the Bitcoin only altcoin builds. There was the kind of notification, refunds, and invoicing with the one right before that. So if we go back one further, right, when you guys added PayJoin, and that PayJoin support and like the other like wallet features, kind of talk to me about that release, what you were trying to achieve with that one, and just kind of, what the benefits are of that release.
So the PayJoin release ended up being very wallet oriented at the end. It wasn't meant to be. I mean, I started working on the PayJoin support back in January, so that was a few months before that release actually shipped. It was I was talking with Samson and from Blockstream, and they decided to sponsor me after the Liquid work to work on the specific feature, which is PayJoin supports, because it's been in the Bitcoin community for a long time. It's been discussed for a long time, but it hasn't been implemented broadly on merchant websites and at least widely. So I implemented the initial version of that, and then Nicholas reiterated on it and improved it a bunch as well. And we ended up, Nicholas ended up publishing a new BIP. I think it's BIP 78, so that it's more of a standard now that other wallets can implement with a specification that should be easy to follow. And PayJoin is really great because it's very merchant oriented as well. So the way we create invoices so that customers can pay a merchant is through a QR code or a payment link, which is basically Bitcoin : the address, amount equals something, right? So what we did was we extended that with the PayJoin support so that it is pretty seamless with our checkout experience. So wallets that support the new PageOne format will automatically start using it without even realizing, enhancing both the merchant and the customer's privacy by obfuscating blockchain analysis companies. And then we ended up, while Nicholas was reiterating through the code that I had written for PageOne, I ended up working on some smaller features around the wallet, such as coin selection, QR, new address generation in a different way. I think, actually, no, actually it was the wallet receiving side and stuff like that. And it became kind of a more general purpose wallet now, right? So with the coin selection, actually it's kind of an advanced feature, but it's very underappreciated by a lot of people, because as a merchant, you receive funds from all sorts of people, right? And sometimes you only want to send funds that you receive from certain people to a specific destination. So coin selection helps you with that. When you, for example, when you receive funds from a customer, it gets labeled now, so you get to see that it got these funds were received from this invoice from this customer. If you can actually go in and say, okay, this transaction was from this person's manually, and you can kind of label your entire wallet history this way, so that you can kind of organize yourself a bit better. And then with the other improvements, such as the receive address page, it's basically allows you to accept Bitcoin on your wallet without having to generate an invoice. So you don't have to be a complete merchant to use your Bitcoin wallet that's associated to your Bitcoin store. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you said, kind of that privacy aspect, again, making sure that, the benefits of Bitcoin, well, you would expect that people who use BTCPay server care about the benefits of Bitcoin, right? So making sure that that privacy aspect is still there, I think is really important. And I think actually one of the things that stood out as you were talking about it is kind of the coin selection, right? I think, I don't know, was it a matter of foresight? Was this all planned? But I imagine that coin selection would come in really handy as you guys are working on like withdrawals and like pull payments, right?
Yeah, so the coin selection actually comes useful with a lot of different things. For example, in the future for PageOne, we want to add a feature so that so I won't get into the technical way of how PageOne works, but we want to make it so that you can tag certain funds that you have on your Bitcoin wallet to be used for PageOne only, because they might be more privacy enhancing, or they've been tainted, or whatever you want to call them, so that you can get rid of that kind of coin from your wallet, so you don't get issues if you send them to an exchange that flags those kind of transactions. Also, you can use the coin selection for quite a lot of different things. At least we plan to use them for other things in the future. Even just labeling and organizing your transactions is helpful on its own. Personally, I use it all the time, but to each their own, I guess. I use my BTCPay wallet, my BTCPay instance as a general purpose wallet, mostly because I'm not a merchant, but it's the most secure wallet that I trust, because I work on it all the time. So yeah, and I have to dog feed my own work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
so yeah, I also use it as used to use it as a merchant, then like tried all sorts of things, but I also now use it as a wallet to either receive donations. I have a donation page where people can send me sats if they want, but I also use it to donate to other contributors from time to time. So yeah, it's a good way to like actually use the software you are working on, because that way you better see like things that need to be improved, and you're basically also users. So that's also important.
Gotcha, very cool. And obviously not going into too much detail, but as we look ahead, right? You guys announced the kind of your Shopify work. Can you give us any teasers on what you guys are focusing on for your next release? It sounds like there's one coming pretty quickly.
Yeah, so All our work is always on GitHub, so we do have projects there where people can look at the stuff we are working on. But our dev meeting is actually a few days from now, so we will like discuss concretely which features we want and which features we think can be done in the 2 or 3 weeks sprint that we have. But yeah, some of the features, as far as I remember, we will have more UI improvements, that's for sure. We really want to tackle that initial setup of a wallet, because right now it's a bit tricky for users to set up a wallet inside BTCPay server. And I noticed that a lot of people like have troubles with that. So we want to make that easier. It still won't be like a completely automated wizards type of UI, but we at certain point it will be like basically like 3-step thing where you click and it's done, or you one click and it's done. We'll see. But for now, we're basically improving the UI around that. I hope we still have to have a consensus on stuff like that. So basically, the way our features work, or how we plan features, each of us comes with a bunch of features users opened, and then we openly discuss them, see what can be done, see how certain issue ties to something else, maybe for something in the future. So we tie all of these things together and come up with a release. It's an exciting process, and at certain point it may be a good idea to even open those meetings or have open notes around them, because I think that other open source projects and even companies can benefit from our development, discussions and interesting organization, I'd say. Though we still have so many improvements to do around organization itself, if you ask me.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the points I alluded to, I think earlier on was, BTC Pay, you guys have it is open source, right? But you guys have a very interesting organizational model that allows you to bypass some of the maybe inefficiencies that exist in kind of Bitcoin core dev, because you have a ton of really great, brilliant developers who are all pursuing very like worthy projects, but there are just like so many guided focal points and like directions where sometimes it can be hard to get things reviewed and then merged. And so I think with that regard, there's definitely a lot of conversation around that review bottleneck. For you guys, that's not really a problem, right? Because you are very like kind of like feature driven, right? You guys have consensus around what features you want to ship in the next release, and then you kind of divert resources as needed to make sure that those are done. So I think we've talked about this before, about kind of that hybrid, interesting, kind of decentralized, centralized organizational model is I think something that we'll see more often as open source kind of picks up more, I think.
Yeah, but in a way, Bitcoin Core has to be a little bit more harsh on the features, because a lot of projects and infrastructure is built on top of it, and they want to make sure that security is done right and stuff like that is done right. On BTCPay server, we are a little bit more open to features because it's like system built on top of Bitcoin, so you can build stuff on top of it. And yeah, in a way, they do have more contributors, more users, but as we grow, we'll see how our model evolves. But for now, for size of our community and for size of our team, contributors team, this model works, but I'm sure that we'll improve it as we grow. And it seems that at this point it is inevitable that BTCPay server will grow, so we'll see how we'll adjust the model.
Definitely, yeah. Yes, you bring up a very good point that the core devs are working on like protocol level stuff, so inherently it will take a bit longer, But yes, it's a good point. Kukks, I actually did have a question specific to you, as someone who loves to code, and I can very clearly tell that is really just what drives you. In your, I guess, almost 2 years with BTCPay, has there been a piece of code or a feature that's been particularly exciting to you from a coding perspective? Something that was super challenging, or something that was just like really fun for you? And you can't say all of it.
Think about that. Yeah. Okay. I think one of the most interesting parts was when I started working on the crowdfund. It was this it was right at the beginning, almost just a few months in, and I just started working on it. I think Nicholas told me like, I can send you some Bitcoin if you just work on this feature or something, and I'm like, okay, sure. And he's like, just build me this small thing, and it. I just started working on it, and like after 2-3 weeks, I had this giant, massive system, which was pretty interesting. It was like one of my main features there at the beginning, like just getting to know the entire system, and that was kind of exciting on its own. I think that was super fun for me. I don't know if you've ever used a crowdfund, but it's has a lot of interesting visuals on it too. Um, it's like full of quake sounds and random flashy things everywhere, and yeah, I think that was definitely one of my most fun things.
Would you say it was like that because, it was one of those instances where you really just took the code and then had a very tangible product? I mean, a couple weeks is not that long, I feel like. So just kind of that connection between code, product that people are using.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it, I think for the amount of time it took to build it, it was quite a nice feature that came out of it. And a lot of people have been using it successfully. At least I think they have been using it successfully. I've seen it in a few pages here and there that just pop up randomly. And it's rewarding, right? So, and it was definitely, I didn't know the code base that well back then. It's definitely a whole different experience now. So, yeah.
Mm. Very cool. And do you feel like you still, you know, it has been 2 years. Do you feel like you are still learning as you code for BTC Pay?
Yeah, always, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
our code is gradually always improving slightly with every release. And that's because we find better ways to do what we do, right? Working with Nicholas, for example, is also super great because he's like this experienced Bitcoin guy, and I always get to learn a lot about consensus rules and crazy Bitcoin logic that I would have never learned on my own, I think. So I'm always learning, at least on the Bitcoin side of things. It's always a super enhanced experience when Nicholas explains something and you're like, whoa, okay. So yeah.
Very cool. Well, that's really exciting. I think, yeah, I would say that I'm increasingly excited with each release that you guys have. It's just really cool to see them all build up on each other. Um, and I think I made like a joke about this, but um, there was a period where I would like bake for our office when we still used to go back into the office. And I was very adamant that I would only bake things I knew how to bake. So then kind of Lee, who is our social lead, we have this running joke that he's gonna bake banana bread and I'm gonna bake my apple crumble, and we're just gonna have a bakery of just the two of us with two baked goods. That's literally all we're gonna sell.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, I think I'm trying to convince him to like move the bakery over our fictional bakery over to BTC Pay server.
We can definitely help you guys with
Yeah.
that.
I think the issue is not BTC Pay server, and more just are people actually going to buy what we're trying to bake.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
I mean,
Very
it's
cool.
also nice as well that you get to see as well some of the features that we're building, like pay join, pull payments, and whatnot. They all eventually tie in together as well. Like the long vision for all these things, they actually become one big feature because, for example, pay join allows you to create transactions with batched payments that you wanted to do later on. So you end up saying, okay, with pull payments, somebody wanted to do a refund and somebody wanted to pay you for an invoice at the same time. So you'll say you're going to do a pay join, batching the refund to the other customer in one go. And all of this stuff means that the merchant pays less fees and everything is more automated and more seamless. And long term, these kind of things make a big improvement, even for blockchain efficiency in transaction sizes. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think again, like it's one of those things where it makes me wonder, right? Like your releases really are like blocks that build on top of each other, right? Like you said, the pay join allows for the refunds and notifications, and that again in the future will allow for like what you just mentioned, right? Like the batching. So I guess my question is this a natural progression that just happens organically Or are you guys during your dev meetings and kind of your project building, are you outlining these specific like prerequisites almost for this end state?
So in terms of the pay join, for example, there was a lot of discussion. That took like forever to merge. I built an initial version in maybe a month, and then Nicholas took another month to build a second version of that on top. And then we put it out as a kind of proof of concept for people to test. And then we built a third version of that with a whole BIP specification for it too. And all that stuff and all the discussions across GitHub and all over the place, it really evolved the feature set and the potential feature set for it as well. So now, I mean, the amount of discussions that went into it was crazy, like, and a lot of insight went into it too. So now we know that we can do a lot of crazy stuff if we wanted to, and I intend to build the crazy stuff as well, at least. So.
Yeah, that's that's good to hear. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a little crazy.
Depends
Okay.
who you ask.
Fair, that's a fair point. Okay, so it sounds like you guys have always been very busy, lots of releases under your belt. Clearly there's one upcoming. I think, again, all I can say is you guys are doing really awesome work, and it's kind of such a joy to see you guys do that. Very exciting. In addition to, of course, the fact that your Twitter presence is by far the funniest, I would say, on crypto Twitter. And to be honest, I hate crypto Twitter, so I'm always on the lookout for what you guys are saying, though.
Yeah, thanks for that. We just tend to be natural with our social media without, that's who all of us are in a way. So we tweet, we don't have like one person, we have multiple people tweeting. So you can see that from the tweets. It's easy if you're in community to see who is tweeting. So.
Wait, so are you telling me that you guys are being genuine and honest on Twitter?
Yes. So
all right.
Even the public shaming of people when they break something is also honest. So it's just the way we are.
Yeah. Well, that must be why people love you guys so much.